The door swung open, and my heart stopped. Olivia stood there, her blue eyes wide, frozen in the doorway of my cramped Brooklyn apartment, as I stood naked, clutching a towel that barely covered me. In that split second, the air thickened with something unspoken, something that would unravel everything I thought I knew about us. My name is Lila, and I'm 27, a painter who's always been more comfortable with a canvas than with words. I've lived in this shoebox of an apartment for 3 years, its walls plastered with my half-finished sketches and dreams. Olivia, my best friend since college, is 29, a freelance journalist with a laugh that could light up the darkest dive bar in Williamsburg. She's straight, or so I thought, always chasing stories and guys who never quite live up to her spark. We've been inseparable since our days at NYU, sharing late-night tacos, bad karaoke, and secrets I thought I'd take to my grave. But I never told her the biggest one. I've been in love with her for years. That evening, the city buzzed outside my window, horns blaring, the faint hum of summer lingering in the September air. I just stepped out of the shower, my skin still damp, when Olivia burst in, unannounced as always. She had a key, a habit from our college days when we'd crash at each other's places after too many beers. Lila, you won't believe the story I just... Her words died as her eyes landed on me. I scrambled for the towel on my bed, my cheeks burning, but her gaze didn't waver. It wasn't shock or embarrassment in her eyes. It was something else, something that made my pulse race. Lila, she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. She stepped closer, the door clicking shut behind her. I clutched the towel tighter, my heart hammering. I didn't mean to. She stopped, her breath catching, and I saw it. A flicker of curiosity, maybe even desire, in her eyes. It was the kind of look that could rewrite everything. I'd always known I was a lesbian. Ever since I was a teenager sneaking glances at girls in the locker room, my heart a quiet traitor. But Olivia, she was the straight girl who dated frat boys, then artists, then that lawyer who broke her heart last spring. I'd spent years burying my feelings, convincing myself they were one-sided, a hopeless crush I'd carry like a bruise. But now, standing there, vulnerable and exposed, I felt the weight of her gaze like a confession. Olivia, I started, but my voice cracked. The room felt too small, the air too heavy. She took another step, her boots soft on the hardwood floor, and I swear I could feel the heat of her body from across the room. Don't, she said, her voice low, almost pleading. Don't hide. I froze. Hide? Did she mean the towel or something deeper? My mind spiraled, replaying every late-night conversation, every time her hand brushed mine, every laugh we shared under the city lights. Had I missed something? Had she? The silence stretched, electric and unbearable. Then she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been thinking about you, Lila. More than I should. My breath caught. This wasn't the Olivia I knew. The bold, fearless woman who chased stories and never flinched. This was someone new, someone unraveling, just like me. I wanted to ask what she meant, but my voice failed me. Instead, I dropped the towel just a fraction, enough to feel reckless, enough to test the air between us. Her eyes widened, but she didn't look away. The room spun, the city outside fading to a hum, and all I could see was her. That moment changed everything. It was the spark that lit a fire I didn't know could burn. But love, especially the kind that defies everything you thought you knew, is never simple. Olivia was straight. I was her best friend. And yet, here we were, standing on the edge of something that could either save us or break us. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and Olivia sitting cross-legged on my couch, her blonde hair spilling over her shoulders. She'd stayed the night, crashing on my lumpy sofa after we talked until 3 a.m. Not about what happened, but about everything else. Her latest article, my upcoming art show, the way the city felt alive at night. We skirted around the moment, but it lingered, heavy and unspoken. Lila, she said, handing me a mug, her fingers brushing mine. Can we talk about last night? My heart leapt, but fear followed close behind. What if she regretted it? What if she laughed it off, chalked it up to a moment of weakness? I nodded, my throat tight, and sat beside her. "I don't know what's happening," she admitted, staring into her coffee. I'm not," she trailed off, her cheeks flushing. "But when I saw you, I felt something, and it scared me." Her honesty hit me like a wave, raw and unguarded. I wanted to reach for her, to tell her I'd felt it too, but I was terrified of ruining what we had. Instead, I said, "You don't have to figure it out right now." It was the bravest thing I could manage, even as my heart screamed to pull her close. She looked at me, her blue eyes searching, and nodded. "Okay," she whispered, "but I don't want to lose you." The days that followed were a dance of tension and tenderness. Olivia came over more often, her visits less casual, her glances lingering. We'd cook dinner together, our shoulders brushing in my tiny kitchen, or watch old movies, her head resting on my shoulder. Each moment felt like a step toward something bigger, something neither of us could name. But the world outside my apartment wasn't as forgiving. Olivia's family, conservative and rooted in a small town upstate, wouldn't understand. My friends, a tight-knit group of queer artists, raised eyebrows when I mentioned Olivia's name too often. "She's straight, Lila," my friend Jamie warned one night at a bar. "Don't get hurt." I laughed it off, but the doubt crept in. Could Olivia really feel what I felt, or was I projecting my longing onto her? One evening, a week later, we went to an art gallery in Dumbo, my paintings on display for the first time. Olivia was there, radiant in a navy dress, cheering louder than anyone when the curator praised my work. Afterward, we walked along the waterfront, the Manhattan skyline glittering across the river. She stopped, turning to face me, her breath visible in the cool night air. "Lila," she said, her voice steady now, "I think I'm falling for you." The words hit me like a thunderbolt, electric and terrifying. I wanted to kiss her, to pull her into my arms and never let go. But fear held me back. What if this was a phase? What if she woke up tomorrow and changed her mind? Before I could respond, she stepped closer, her hand finding mine. "I don't know what this means," she said, "but I know it's real." And then she kissed me, soft and tentative, under the shadow of the Brooklyn Bridge. The world fell away, and for the first time, I let myself believe this could be real. But love, especially one that defies labels, is a fragile thing. As we walked back to my apartment, hand in hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, and that the road ahead would test us in ways we couldn't yet imagine. The kiss lingered in my mind like a melody I couldn't shake. Olivia's lips, soft and searching, had unlocked something in me. A hope I'd buried deep, a dream I'd never dared to voice. But as we walked back to my apartment that night, the weight of her words settled over me. I don't know what this means, but I know it's real. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my window, painting stripes across Olivia's sleeping form on my couch. She looked peaceful, her blonde hair splayed like a halo, but my heart was a storm. I'd spent years loving her in silence, and now, with one kiss, the walls I'd built were crumbling. But what did it mean for her? Was this a fleeting curiosity, or something deeper? I busied myself with coffee, the familiar ritual grounding me. When Olivia stirred, her smile was shy, almost hesitant. "Morning," she said, sitting up, her voice carrying a new weight. We didn't talk about the kiss, not yet. Instead, we ate breakfast in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from years of friendship. But every glance, every accidental brush of her hand, felt charged, like static before a storm. That afternoon, we wandered through Prospect Park, the leaves just starting to turn gold. Olivia was quieter than usual, her usual chatter replaced by thoughtful pauses. Finally, she spoke. "Lila, I've been thinking about last night, about us." My heart leapt, but I stayed silent, letting her find her words. "I've never felt this way about a woman before," she admitted, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. "It's confusing, but it's not just curiosity. It's you." Her words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. I'd seen her fall hard for men, only to crash when they let her down. What if this was another impulsive leap? What if I was the one who ended up broken? Olivia, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. This isn't just about me. It's about you figuring out who you are. She stopped walking, turning to face me. I know, she said, her blue eyes fierce. But I want to figure it out with you. Her hand found mine, and I felt the world shift again. We stood there, under the canopy of trees, two women on the edge of something vast and uncharted. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments. Olivia came over almost every night, our friendship blurring into something more. We'd cook pasta in my tiny kitchen, laughing as sauce splattered the counter, or lie on my bed, sharing stories of our pasts. She told me about growing up in a small town, where being different wasn't an option, and I shared the fear I'd felt coming out to my parents at 18. Each story brought us closer, but it also reminded me of the stakes. Olivia wasn't just exploring her feelings. She was stepping into a world that could judge her, reject her, change her. One night, we went to a queer bar in Bushwick, a place I loved for its gritty charm and pulsing music. Olivia seemed nervous, her eyes scanning the crowd of women dancing, laughing, loving without shame. I introduced her to my friends, Jamie, a non-binary photographer, and Sarah, a poet with a sharp wit. They welcomed her warmly, but I caught Jamie's sidelong glance, a silent warning. Be careful. As we danced, Olivia's hesitance melted away. She moved with me, her body close, her laughter bright. For a moment, it felt like we were untouchable, like the world couldn't reach us. But later, as we sat in a booth, she grew quiet again. What if I'm not ready for this? She asked, her voice small. What if I hurt you? The question hit me like a punch. I wanted to tell her it was worth the risk, that I'd take any pain for a chance at this. But instead, I took her hand. We go at your pace, I said. No pressure. She nodded, but the doubt in her eyes lingered. The next day, Olivia got a call from her editor, a big story, a profile on a senator with a murky past. It meant long hours, late nights, and less time for us. I tried not to let it sting, but the distance felt like a warning. When she came over a few days later, exhausted but triumphant, she kissed me with a hunger that caught me off guard. I missed you, she whispered, and I believed her. But as we lay together that night, her head on my chest, I couldn't shake the fear that this was too fragile, too new to survive the weight of the world. Then came the dinner with her parents. Olivia invited me to their house upstate for the weekend. A casual visit, she said, to introduce you as my friend. But the way she said it, the way her eyes avoided mine, told me she wasn't ready to tell them the truth. I agreed because I loved her, but the drive up felt like a test. Her parents were kind but distant, their small talk laced with expectations. When would Olivia settle down? Had she met a nice man yet? Each question was a reminder of the world she came from, a world that didn't include me. At dinner, her mother asked about my art, her tone polite but curious. Lila's work is incredible, Olivia said, her voice warm, her hand brushing mine under the table. For a moment I felt seen, included. But later, as we sat on the porch, her father's voice carried through the screen door. She's a nice girl, Olivia, but you need to think about your future. The words weren't meant for me, but they cut just the same. That night, in the guest room, Olivia slipped into my bed, her arms wrapping around me. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm not ashamed of you. I just need time. I held her, my heart aching, because I knew time wasn't just about her. It was about us, and whether we could survive the weight of who we were becoming. The drive back to Brooklyn was quiet, the hum of the highway filling the space where words should have been. Olivia's hand rested on my knee, but her eyes were distant, lost in thoughts she didn't share. I wanted to ask what her father's words meant to her, but the silence felt safer, like a shield against the truth we weren't ready to face. Back in the city, life pulled us in different directions. Olivia's story on the senator consumed her, her phone buzzing with deadlines and sources. I threw myself into my art, painting late into the night, each stroke a way to quiet the questions in my head. Was Olivia ready for this? Was I? Our moments together grew fleeting, A quick coffee, a stolen kiss, but they burned brighter because of it. One evening, she showed up at my apartment, her face lit with excitement. "The story's done," she said, holding up a bottle of cheap wine. "Let's celebrate." We drank on my fire escape, the city sprawling below us, and for a few hours it was just us again. Laughing, teasing, kissing until the world faded. But as we lay tangled in my sheets later, she grew quiet. "Lila," she said, her voice barely audible, "what if I'm not enough for you?" The question caught me off guard. "You're everything," I said, my voice fierce. But she shook her head. "I mean this world. Your world. I'm still figuring out who I am in it." Her honesty was raw, and it scared me. I'd spent years navigating my identity, facing rejection, finding my place. Olivia was just beginning, and I couldn't rush her, no matter how much I wanted to. The next week, we went to a queer poetry slam in the East Village, a place where I felt at home. Olivia was nervous, her fingers fidgeting with her necklace, but she smiled as we settled into the crowd. The poets were electric, their words raw and unapologetic, and I saw Olivia's eyes light up, her journalist's curiosity sparking. After, we talked with a few performers, and I watched her charm them, her questions thoughtful and sharp. For the first time, I thought she might belong here with me. But the world has a way of testing you. A few days later, Olivia got a text from an ex, Mark, the lawyer who'd broken her heart. He wanted to meet, to talk. She told me about it over dinner, her voice casual, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. "It's nothing," she said, but I wasn't so sure. Mark was a reminder of the life she'd known, the one where she didn't have to explain herself, where love didn't come with questions. I tried to push the fear aside, but it grew when Olivia started pulling back. Her texts were slower, her visits less frequent. When I asked, she'd say she was swamped with work, but I felt the distance like a physical ache. One night, I saw her Instagram story, a photo of her and Mark at a coffee shop, laughing. My heart sank. Was she slipping back into her old life, the one where I didn't fit? I confronted her the next day, my voice shaking. "Are you seeing him again?" I asked, hating how small I sounded. Olivia's eyes widened, then softened. "No," she said firmly. "It was just coffee. I needed closure, Lila. I'm not going back." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away, the hurt too fresh. "Then why does it feel like you're pulling away from me?" I asked. She looked stricken, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm scared," she admitted. "This is new, and it's big, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. But I want you, Lila. I want us." Her words were a balm, but the doubt lingered. Love was a leap, and I wasn't sure if we were both ready to jump. The next weekend, we went to a rooftop party in Williamsburg, hosted by one of Olivia's journalist friends. The crowd was a mix of artsy types and media folks, and I felt out of place, my paint-splattered jeans a stark contrast to their polished looks. Olivia, though, was in her element, laughing and networking. I watched her from across the rooftop, her blonde hair glowing under the string lights, and felt a pang of pride mixed with fear. She was so alive, so magnetic. Could I really hold on to her? Then I saw Mark. He was there, leaning close to Olivia, his hand on her arm. My stomach twisted, and I turned away, slipping into the crowd. I didn't want to see it, didn't want to know if she'd let him back in. But moments later, she found me, her face flushed. "Lila, wait," she said, grabbing my hand. I told him no. I told him I'm with you. The words hit me like a wave, washing away the fear. She pulled me close, her lips finding mine in the middle of the rooftop, unafraid of who saw. For the first time, I believed her, believed in us. But as we danced under the stars, the city glittering below, I knew this was only a moment. The real test was coming, and it would demand everything we had. Olivia's kiss on that rooftop was a promise, but promises are fragile things. In the days that followed, we were closer than ever, our connection a quiet fire that warmed every moment. But the world outside kept pressing in, reminding us that love doesn't exist in a vacuum. I started noticing the small things. Olivia's hesitation when we held hands in public, the way she'd lower her voice when talking about me to her coworkers. It wasn't shame, not exactly, but a caution that stung all the same. I'd spent years being unapologetically myself, and now I was asking her to do the same, to step into a world that wasn't always kind. One afternoon, we went to a farmer's market in Park Slope, the air crisp with fall. Olivia was radiant, her laughter bright as she sampled cheeses and teased me about my obsession with fresh lavender. But when I reached for her hand, she flinched, just for a second, before lacing her fingers with mine. "Sorry," she murmured, her eyes apologetic. "It's just new." I nodded, but the moment stayed with me. That night, as we curled up on my couch, I asked her about it. "Are you scared of what people think?" My voice was gentle, but the question was sharp. She sighed, tucking her hair behind her ear. "It's not about you," she said. "It's about me. I've never had to think about how the world sees me before." Her words were honest, but they cut. I'd faced those stares, those whispers, years ago. Coming out had been my battle, and I'd won it, scars and all. But Olivia was still in the trenches, and I couldn't fight it for her. "I'll wait," I said, my hand on hers. "But I need you to be all in, eventually." She nodded, her eyes glistening, and kissed me softly. "I'm trying," she whispered. The next challenge came unexpectedly. Olivia's sister, Claire, was getting married in a month, and Olivia wanted me to come as her +1. "As my girlfriend," she said, her voice firm but nervous. It was a big step, one that would force her to confront her family, to name what we were. I agreed, my heart soaring, but the fear lingered. Her family wasn't cruel, but they were traditional, and I wasn't sure how they'd react to their golden girl bringing a woman home. We spent the next few weeks preparing, not just for the wedding but for what it meant. Olivia started opening up to her friends, testing the waters. Some were supportive, others confused, and one, a childhood friend, stopped texting her altogether. "It hurts," she admitted one night, her voice breaking, "but you're worth it." Her words were a lifeline, but they also reminded me of the cost she was paying to be with me. As the wedding approached, Olivia grew tense, her smiles forced. I tried to be her anchor, cooking her favorite meals, painting her a small canvas of the Brooklyn Bridge where we'd first kissed. But the night before we left for the wedding, she broke. "What if they hate me for this?" she sobbed, her head in my lap. "What if I lose them?" I held her, my heart aching. "You won't lose me," I said. "And if they love you, they'll come around." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure. Families could be cruel even when they didn't mean to be. I'd learned that the hard way when my own parents took years to accept me. The wedding was in a quaint venue upstate, all white flowers and rustic charm. Olivia looked stunning in an emerald green dress, her hair swept up, but her hands trembled as we walked in. Her family greeted me warmly, but their eyes lingered, questions unspoken. During the reception, Claire pulled Olivia aside, and I watched from across the room, my heart pounding. When Olivia returned, her face was pale. "She's happy for me," she said, but her voice was hollow. "But she said Mom and Dad might need time." Time. That word again. I wanted to scream, to demand the world move faster, but I just squeezed her hand. "We'll get through it," I said. And we did, for the rest of the night, dancing, laughing, pretending the weight wasn't there. But as we drove back to the city, Olivia was quiet, her hand gripping mine like a lifeline. The next morning, back in my apartment, she was different, lighter, like she'd shed a layer of fear. "I told Claire everything," she said, her eyes bright. "And I'm going to tell my parents. I want them to know who I am." I pulled her into my arms, tears stinging my eyes. It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was a step. And for the first time, I felt like we were building something real, something that could last. But love is never a straight line. A week later, Olivia got a call from her mother, and I watched her face fall as she listened. When she hung up, she looked at me, her eyes filled with a pain I couldn't touch. "They want to meet you," she said, "but they're not happy." Olivia's words hung in the air like a storm cloud. "They're not happy." I wanted to ask what they said, to pull the truth from her, but the look in her eyes, raw, fragile, stopped me. Instead, I held her, my arms a silent promise that we'd face this together. The meeting with her parents was set for the following weekend, back at their house upstate. The days leading up to it were a blur of tension. Olivia threw herself into work, her laptop a constant companion, while I painted feverishly, each canvas a release for the fear I couldn't voice. We still had our moments. Quiet dinners, stolen kisses. But the weight of her parents' disapproval loomed over us. The drive up was different this time, the silence heavier. Olivia's hands gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. "They're good people," she said, more to herself than to me. "They just don't understand." I nodded, my throat tight, but inside, I was bracing for a fight I didn't want. Her parents' house was warm, filled with the smell of roasted chicken and the soft hum of a radio. Her mother, Ellen, greeted me with a polite smile, her eyes searching. Her father, Tom, shook my hand, his grip firm but distant. We sat in the living room, the ticking of a clock loud in the silence. Olivia took my hand, her fingers trembling, and I felt the weight of her courage. "Lila's important to me," Olivia said, her voice steady despite the tension. "We're together." The words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through the room. Ellen's smile faltered, and Tom's jaw tightened. "Olivia," Ellen said carefully, "we love you, but it's a lot to take in." The conversation that followed was a tightrope walk. They asked questions, how long, what it meant, whether Olivia was sure. I wanted to defend her, to tell them she was still their daughter, but Olivia squeezed my hand, a silent plea to let her speak. "I'm still me," she said, her voice breaking. "I just love her." Tom stood, pacing. "We raised you to have a certain life," he said, his voice low. "A husband, kids, stability. This isn't what we pictured." The word stung, not just for Olivia but for me, a reminder that I didn't fit their vision of her future. But Olivia didn't waver. "This is my life," she said, "and Lila's my future." The rest of the visit was strained, polite but cold. As we drove back, Olivia was quiet, her eyes fixed on the road. "I thought they'd try harder," she said finally, her voice small. I reached for her hand, my heart aching. "They will," I said, hoping I was right. "They just need time." Back in Brooklyn, we leaned on each other, finding solace in the familiar. Olivia started joining me at queer events, her confidence growing. One night, at a drag show in Greenpoint, she laughed louder than I'd ever heard, her arm around me, unafraid. It felt like progress, like she was claiming this part of herself. But the shadow of her parents' disapproval lingered, a reminder that love could be a battle. Then came the article. Olivia's profile on the senator was published, a scathing exposé that went viral overnight. Suddenly, she was everywhere, on news sites, podcasts, even a morning show. I was proud, but the attention changed things. She was busier, her phone a constant buzz, and I felt her slipping away, even as she swore she was all in. One night, she came over, exhausted but glowing. "They want me to write a book," she said, her eyes wide. "A book, Lila?" I hugged her, my pride genuine, but a small voice whispered, "Where do I fit in this?" Her world was expanding, and I was still just a painter in a tiny apartment, my dreams smaller, quieter. The next blow came unexpectedly. At a gallery event for my latest work, Olivia was late, stuck at a meeting with her publisher. When she finally arrived, she was distracted, her eyes on her phone. My friends noticed, their glances sharp. "She's not here for you," Jamie whispered, and though I brushed it off, the doubt crept in. Later, as we walked home, I confronted her. "Are you pulling away because of your parents? Or because of this?" I gestured to her phone, to the world she was building. She stopped, her face crumpling. "It's not you," she said. "It's everything. The book, my family. This I'm trying to hold it all together." I wanted to believe her, but the distance felt real. That night we made love, desperate and raw, like we were trying to anchor ourselves. But as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, wondering if love was enough to bridge the gap between our worlds. The next morning, Olivia woke with a determination I hadn't seen before. "I'm telling my parents everything," she said. "No more hiding." She called them, her voice steady as she invited them to Brooklyn, to see us, to see me. It was a risk, a leap, and I loved her for it. But as we waited for their response, I couldn't shake the fear that we were standing on the edge of something that could either make us or break us. The wait for Olivia's parents to respond felt like holding my breath underwater. Days passed, and her phone stayed silent, each hour stretching the tension between us. Olivia tried to stay upbeat, planning our days with a forced brightness, but I saw the strain in her eyes, the way her smile faltered when she thought I wasn't looking. We filled the time with routine, coffee runs, late-night movies, my paintbrush dancing across canvases while she typed furiously on her book proposal. But the unspoken hung heavy. What would her parents say? Would they accept us? Or would they draw a line she couldn't cross? I wanted to be her rock, but my own fears gnawed at me. What if their rejection pushed her away from me? Finally, the call came. Olivia's face lit up when she saw her mother's name on the screen. But as she listened, her expression shifted. Hope, then hurt, then resolve. "They're coming this weekend," she said, hanging up. "They want to talk." Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she set the phone down. I pulled her close, my heart pounding. "We'll face it together," I said, and she nodded, but the fear in her eyes mirrored my own. The days before their visit were a whirlwind. Olivia cleaned my apartment obsessively, as if a spotless floor could sway their hearts. I painted, pouring my nerves into bold strokes of color, creating a piece for Olivia, a vibrant abstract of two figures intertwined, their edges blurred like our lives. "It's us," I told her, showing her the canvas. She smiled, tears in her eyes, and kissed me fiercely. "I love you," she said, the words a lifeline. Her parents arrived on Saturday, their rental car pulling up outside my building. Ellen and Tom were polite, their smiles tight, but I felt their scrutiny as we sat in my cramped living room. Olivia took the lead, her voice clear. "I love Lila," she said, her hand finding mine. "She's my partner, and I need you to see that." The words were a declaration, bold and unapologetic, and my heart swelled with pride. Ellen's eyes softened, but Tom's jaw tightened. "We're trying, Olivia," Ellen said. "But this is different. We need time to understand." Tom said little, his silence louder than words. The conversation was careful, each question a minefield. They asked about my life, my art, but I felt the undercurrent. What did this mean for Olivia's future? For their expectations? Dinner was tense, the clink of silverware filling the silences. Afterward, Ellen pulled me aside. "You seem like a good person, Lila," she said. "But Olivia's our daughter. We're scared for her." I nodded, my throat tight. "I'm scared too," I admitted. "But I love her, and I'll fight for her." She looked at me, her eyes searching, and for a moment, I thought she understood. They left the next morning, promising to stay in touch. Olivia was quiet, processing, but she held my hand as we waved them off. "That went better than I expected," she said, but her voice was hollow. I wanted to believe her, but the weight of their hesitation lingered. The next week, Olivia threw herself into her book, the pressure of deadlines consuming her. I tried to keep up, attending her readings, cheering her on, but the distance between us grew. One night, she canceled our plans, citing a meeting with her editor. I went to a bar with Jamie, who didn't hold back. "She's got one foot in your world and one foot in hers," they said. "You deserve someone who's all in." Their words stung because they echoed my fears. When Olivia came over the next day, I couldn't hold it in. "Are you in this, Olivia?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Or are you keeping one foot out the door?" She looked stricken, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm trying," she said, "but it's hard. My parents, my career. It's all crashing together." I wanted to yell, to demand she choose me, but I saw the exhaustion in her eyes. Instead, I pulled her close. "I'm here," I said. "But I need you to meet me halfway." She nodded, her tears soaking my shirt, and we held each other, the future uncertain but ours to fight for. Then came the gallery opening. My biggest show yet, a solo exhibition in Chelsea. Olivia promised to be there, her support a light in the chaos. But as the night wore on, she didn't show. My phone stayed silent, and the crowd's praise felt hollow without her. When I got home, she was waiting, her face pale. "I'm sorry," she said. "The publisher needed me, and I—" "Stop," I said, my voice sharp. "You keep choosing everything else over me." The words hung between us, raw and true. Olivia's eyes widened, then softened. "You're right," she said. "I've been scared, Lila. Scared of losing them, of failing, of not being enough for you. But I'm done running." She stepped closer, her hands cupping my face. "I choose you," she said, and kissed me, fierce and certain. For the first time, I felt the weight of her promise, not just in her words but in her touch. But as we held each other, I knew the fight wasn't over. Love was a choice, and we'd have to keep making it, every day. Olivia's promise, "I choose you," echoed in my heart, but promises are only as strong as the actions behind them. That night, as we lay in my bed, her head on my chest, I felt the fragile hope of a new beginning. But the world doesn't pause for love, and the weeks that followed tested us in ways I hadn't expected. Olivia's book deal was moving fast, her days filled with meetings, drafts, and late-night revisions. I was proud, but the distance grew, not in her heart but in her time. My art show had put me on the map, and suddenly I had commissions, interviews, a whirlwind of my own. We were two women chasing dreams, but it felt like our paths were diverging. One evening, we met at a diner in Williamsburg, the kind with sticky booths and endless coffee refills. Olivia looked exhausted, her eyes shadowed but bright when they met mine. "I miss you," she said, reaching for my hand across the table. "This book is killing me, but it's for us, you know? For our future." Her words warmed me, but the ache remained. I wanted her now, not just in some distant future. I tried to bridge the gap, showing up at her readings, leaving notes in her bag, painting her small gifts. She did the same, sneaking into my studio with takeout, kissing me between brushstrokes. But the strain was there, a quiet tension in our silences. Her parents hadn't called since their visit, and though Olivia didn't say it, I knew it weighed on her. Then came the fight. It was a Friday night, rain pounding the city, and Olivia was late again, stuck at a networking event. I'd spent the day prepping for a gallery meeting, my nerves frayed, and her absence felt like a betrayal. When she finally arrived, soaked and apologetic, I snapped. "You're never here, Olivia," I said, my voice sharp. "I'm fighting for us, but it feels like I'm alone." Her face crumpled, but she didn't back down. "I'm trying, Lila," she said, her voice rising. "This book, my family, it's not just about me. It's about proving I can do this, that I can be someone you're proud of." Her words hit me hard, and I saw the truth. She was fighting, just in a different way. But the hurt lingered, and I turned away, tears burning my eyes. We didn't speak for 2 days, the longest we'd ever gone. The silence was deafening, my apartment too empty without her laugh. I painted, each stroke a release for the pain, but it wasn't enough. On the 3rd day, she showed up at my door, her eyes red. "I'm sorry," she said, stepping inside. "I'm scared, Lila. Scared of failing you, of losing my family, of not being enough. But I love you, and I'm not giving up." Her words broke me, and I pulled her into my arms, the fight dissolving in her warmth. "We're enough," I said, my voice thick. "Together." We made love that night, slow and tender, each touch a promise to keep fighting. But as we lay there, I knew the world wouldn't make it easy. The next test came from my side. My friends, especially Jamie, had been skeptical of Olivia from the start. At a queer art collective meeting, Jamie cornered me. "She's not one of us, Lila," they said. "She's got one foot in the straight world, and it's going to break you." Their words stung, echoing my own fears. I defended Olivia, but the doubt crept in. Was she truly in this? Or was I a phase? A story she'd tell someday? I brought it up with Olivia that night, my voice hesitant. Do you ever think about going back? I asked. To the life you had before? Her eyes widened, hurt flashing across her face. No, she said firmly. That life didn't have you. She kissed me, fierce and certain, and for a moment, I believed her completely. But the world kept pushing. Olivia's publisher wanted her to do a book tour, a month on the road. The thought of her leaving, even temporarily, terrified me. Come with me, she said, her eyes pleading. We'll make it work. But my art was here, my life was here, and I couldn't shake the fear that distance would unravel us. We compromised. She'd do a shorter tour, and I'd join her for part of it. But as we planned, her parents called again. This time, they wanted to visit her in the city, to talk more. Olivia was nervous but hopeful, and I tried to be too. The night before they arrived, we sat on my fire escape, the city humming below. I want them to see us, she said. The real us. I nodded, my heart full but heavy. Love was a fight, and we were in the thick of it, but I wasn't sure if we'd come out stronger or scarred. The morning of her parents' second visit, Olivia was a bundle of nerves, pacing my apartment as she rearranged books and adjusted picture frames. I watched her, my heart aching with love and fear. This wasn't just a visit, it was a reckoning, a chance for her to claim us in front of the people who'd shaped her. When Ellen and Tom arrived, the air was thick with unspoken questions. Olivia greeted them with a hug, her smile bright but brittle. We sat in my living room, the same space where we'd first declared our love, but now it felt like a stage. Olivia took my hand, her grip firm. I want you to know who we are, she said, her voice steady. Lila's my partner, and I love her. Ellen's eyes softened, but Tom's face was unreadable. We see that, Ellen said carefully. But Olivia, this is hard for us. We're trying to understand, but it's not what we expected. Tom nodded, his voice gruff. We want you to be happy, but we're worried. This life, it's not easy. Their words were kind, but they carried a weight, a reminder of the world's judgment. I wanted to speak, to defend our love, but Olivia squeezed my hand, taking the lead. I know it's not what you pictured, she said, but this is who I am. And Lila makes me happy. Her voice broke, and I felt tears prick my eyes. She was fighting for us, and it was beautiful and terrifying. The visit wasn't a victory, but it was a step. Ellen hugged me before they left, her embrace tentative but warm. Tom shook my hand, his eyes searching mine. Take care of her, he said, and I nodded, my throat tight. As they drove away, Olivia collapsed into my arms, tears streaming down her face. They're trying, she whispered. That's something. The next weeks were a delicate balance. Olivia prepared for her book tour, her excitement tempered by the strain of her parents' cautious acceptance. I threw myself into my art, landing a commission for a mural in a community center. We were building our lives, but the cracks were still there, the fear that our worlds might not align. One night, at a queer film festival in the village, Olivia seemed distant, her eyes on her phone. I asked what was wrong, and she sighed. My publisher wants me to tone down the personal stuff, she said. They think my story, us, might alienate readers. The words hit like a slap. Our love, the thing we'd fought for, was being reduced to a marketing problem. I felt the anger rise, but I kept my voice steady. What did you say? I asked. She looked at me, her eyes fierce. I told them no. This is my life, and I'm not hiding it. Her words were a spark, reigniting my hope. I kissed her, the crowd fading around us, and for a moment it was just us against the world. But the world kept coming. Olivia's book tour started, and I joined her for the first leg, a whirlwind of cities and signings. She was electric, her passion for her work infectious, but the late nights and constant travel wore on us. In Chicago, we fought again, over something small. A missed call, a forgotten plan, but it felt bigger, like all our fears bubbling up. I'm giving everything I have, she said, tears in her eyes. Why isn't it enough? It is, I said, pulling her close. I'm just scared of losing you. We made up, our apologies whispered in a hotel room, but the fear lingered. When I returned to Brooklyn, the distance felt physical, her texts fewer, her calls shorter. I painted, each stroke a prayer that we'd survive this. Then came the call that changed everything. Olivia was in Seattle, her voice shaky over the phone. My dad had a heart attack, she said. I'm flying home. My heart sank and I booked a flight to join her, not caring about the cost. When I arrived, she was a wreck, her eyes red from crying. We sat in the hospital waiting room, her hand in mine, the future uncertain. As we waited for news, Olivia leaned into me, her voice a whisper. I don't know what I'd do without you, she said. And in that moment, I knew no matter what came next, we were in this together. Love wasn't just the highs. It was the quiet moments, the hard ones, the ones where you hold on and refuse to let go. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and fear, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on Olivia's face as we sat in the waiting room. Her hand gripped mine, her nails digging into my palm, but I didn't care. Her father's heart attack had shaken her, and I was her anchor, even as my own heart raced with worry. For him, for her, for us. Tom was stable, the doctors said, but the recovery would be long. Olivia stayed by his side, her journalist's tenacity replaced by a daughter's quiet devotion. I watched her, marveling at her strength, but I saw the toll it took. The sleepless nights, the whispered conversations with her mother, the weight of family pulling her in ways I couldn't reach. Ellen was kinder now, her gratitude for my presence clear in her tired smiles. You're good for her, she said one night, as we sat with coffee in the hospital cafeteria. I see that now. Her words were a balm, but Tom's silence was harder to read. He was recovering, but his eyes held a distance, a question he hadn't voiced. Olivia and I stole moments where we could. Quiet walks around the hospital grounds, her head on my shoulder as we watched the sunset. I'm scared, she admitted one evening, her voice raw. Not just for Dad, but for us. What if this changes everything? I kissed her forehead, my heart aching. It won't, I said. We're stronger than this. But the strain was real. Olivia's book tour was paused, her publisher frustrated but understanding. My mural project was on hold, my life in Brooklyn a world away. We were in limbo, caught between her family's needs and our own. One night, as we lay in her childhood bedroom, she turned to me, her eyes searching. Do you ever think about what we'd be like in 10 years? She asked. The question caught me off guard, but I smiled. I see us in a bigger apartment, maybe with a dog, I said. You're a famous author. I'm painting murals across the city, and we're happy. She laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in days, and kissed me. I want that, she said. With you. Tom was released a week later, and we stayed to help, settling into a routine of hospital visits and family dinners. Olivia's sister, Claire, was a quiet ally, her support unwavering. But Tom's recovery was slow, and his questions about us grew sharper. What does this mean for your future? He asked Olivia one night, his voice gruff. Kids, marriage? Can you have that with her? The question stung, but Olivia didn't flinch. I don't know what the future holds, she said, but I know I love Lila, and that's enough for now. Her words were a shield, but I saw the pain in her eyes, the weight of his expectations. I wanted to tell him our love was as valid as any, but I held back, letting Olivia lead. As we returned to Brooklyn, the city felt different, like we'd brought the weight of upstate with us. Olivia threw herself back into her book, determined to finish it, while I worked on my mural, painting late into the night. We were together, but the cracks were there, her late nights, my doubts, the fear that we were fighting too many battles. Then came the breakthrough. Olivia's publisher loved her latest draft, and they scheduled a new tour, shorter this time. She asked me to come, and I said yes, determined to make it work. But the night before we left, she got a call from her father. He wants to talk, she said, her voice shaky. Just me. She went upstate alone, and I waited, my heart in my throat. When she returned, her face was unreadable. He's trying, she said. He doesn't understand, but he loves me, and he's trying. It wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was a start. I pulled her into my arms, tears in my eyes. We're enough, I said, and she nodded, her breath warm against my neck. The tour was a whirlwind: Boston, Philly, D.C. Olivia shone, her passion infectious, and I was there, cheering her on. But in quiet moments, I saw the weight she carried, the fear of losing her family, her career, herself. One night, in a hotel in D.C., she broke down. I want this to work, she said, her voice raw. But I'm so tired, Lila. I held her, my own fears rising. We don't have to have all the answers, I said. Just keep choosing me, and I'll keep choosing you. She nodded, her tears soaking my shirt, and we fell asleep, tangled together, holding on to the hope that love could be enough. The tour ended, and we returned to Brooklyn, our lives a tangle of hope and uncertainty. Olivia's book was a success, her name in lights, but the cost was etched in the lines around her eyes. My mural was finished, a vibrant testament to our love painted across a community center wall, but I felt the weight of our battles, her family, our fears, the world that demanded we justify our love. We settled back into my apartment, the familiar creak of the floorboards a comfort. Olivia was different now, stronger in some ways, fragile in others. Her parents called more often, their conversations cautious but growing warmer. Tom sent a card for my birthday, a small gesture that felt like a bridge. Ellen invited us for Thanksgiving, and though Olivia hesitated, we said yes, determined to build something new. The holiday was a mix of warmth and tension. Ellen hugged us both, her embrace genuine, but Tom's smiles were still tight, his questions careful. At dinner, Claire raised a glass to us, her toast simple but powerful. To love, in all its forms. Olivia's hand found mine under the table, and I felt the weight of her choice, her courage in claiming me. Back in the city, we found a rhythm. Olivia worked on her next book, her passion undimmed, while I took on new commissions, my art a reflection of our journey. We fought, of course, over small things like dishes and bigger things like time and trust, but we always came back to each other, our love a stubborn flame. One night, under the Brooklyn Bridge where we'd first kissed, Olivia stopped, her eyes bright. I want to build a life with you, she said, pulling a small box from her pocket. Inside was a ring, simple and silver, a promise not of marriage but of forever. I don't know what the future holds, she said, but I know I want you in it. Tears streamed down my face as I nodded, slipping the ring on my finger. Yes, I whispered, and we kissed, the city humming around us, our love a quiet rebellion against the world. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. Her parents were still learning, our lives still messy, but it was ours, hard-won and real. Months later, at my next gallery show, Olivia was there, her pride radiant. My paintings told our story. Bold colors, blurred edges, two figures finding each other against the odds. As the crowd mingled, she pulled me close, her voice a whisper. We made it, she said, and I smiled, knowing we'd keep fighting, keep choosing each other, every day. Our love wasn't perfect, but it was true. It was late nights and hard conversations, small victories and quiet moments. It was Olivia walking into my room that day, seeing me, really seeing me, and choosing to stay. And in a world that often demanded we explain ourselves, we found our answer in each other. A love that didn't need to justify itself, a love that simply was.